Welcome back to Dragonclaw. Today we're going to review the Eafengrow or Eafengrow. I'll figure out how to pronounce this manufacturer one day, or reseller. I shouldn't say manufacturer, truly reseller. This is the EF65. The Eafengrow, and you'll probably hear me say this thing 20 different ways during this review. The Eafengrow EF65 flipper. So this knife, it is a very thin. One might consider it a gentleman's flipper. Let's go through some specs. Let's knock some of the specs out. Blade wise, let's get their branding out there so you can see it. Branding wise, blade wise, 3 inches, overall 7 inches long, so roughly a 4-inch handle. D2 steel, as you can see, they do have a D2 stamp in there. I'll get to that here in a minute. Stop, focus. There we go. Sorry about that. More on that here in a second. G10 handle. I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Oh, get focus. There we go. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And a really thick spine on this thing. So it's just over 1/8 of an inch, which doesn't seem real thick, but on this fairly relatively small flipper, that's a pretty thick spine. So 0.14 is what they advertise it as. 0.14 of an inch. And there we go. Finally getting focused. Let's see. I mentioned that thick spine, which I just like to see overall. You know, thick blade is a good blade, and for the most part. There's always exceptions, but thick blade is a good blade. Ball bearing. It doesn't look like it. You can usually see that pivot and tell that it's for sure ball bearing. If it wasn't for the deployment, I would question that. But it is a very smooth deploy. So okay, I'll give it to him. Pivot. I really want to take this one apart and check it out to validate. Because the Eafengrow isn't, how do I put it? I wouldn't say sketchy necessarily, but they're an Amazon company, so you kind of have to be a little leery of that. I've showed you it extended a few times. What really drew me to this blade was that Tanto blade. I just love Tanto blades. I love any Japanese, Chinese weaponry, even art. I mentioned it, as I mentioned in my welcome video a while back. I love Chinese dragons, Japanese dragons. It doesn't matter. Thai dragons, dragons in general, anywhere from Asia, and I'm obsessed with. So weaponry very similar. Chinese, Japanese, even other Asian countries. I'm really into their weaponry, so a lot of Wagasashi, Tanto, katanas in my collection, and just really thought this had an overall great Tanto vibe to it. So what else? Let's talk about the liner lock, which in my opinion sucks. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I hate this liner lock. The liner lock itself, it's really hard to see, and that should be a first inkling of it's not going to be a good liner lock. I should be able to see it exposed somehow, some way. And if it's not, at least for my big thumbs, I cannot for the life of me get that unlocked. I have to use my nail and really dig in there, here we go, to get it to unlock. And there it is. I almost always have to use my nail, but not necessarily. It's just, it's a lot easier if I just dig into it with my nail. Boom. So for that reason alone, not a huge fan of this knife. I think they really missed that mark on that liner lock. If you notice, there is some jimping on the back there. It's man, it is really close to I would say just don't even do it. But it's right there on the borderline. So I would actually lean towards, it's good jimping. As you can see, when I bring my thumb down, it does kind of want to pause there. Part of that is the handle kind of grabbing my thumb, but a lot of it is that jimping. And you can see right there, it just kind of stops right at the jimping. That's perfect. Like I said, borderline, not good enough. But they just, I said perfect just a minute ago. It's not perfect. It just hit the mark, just barely. What else? I mentioned the Tanto point to butt. This thing just screams Tanto. So it was probably my #1 factor in snagging it. I mentioned the D12. There's some controversy over if it's really D12 or not. So, or D12, D2. D12, that is a whole nother thing. A band if you're not familiar with D12. The D2, there's some controversy over whether it's really D2 as we know it. So there are some, we'll call them divergents. Some people would call them knockoffs. I can't argue with that. And they're touting it as D2. It is close to D2. So I'm not 100% sold that it is true D2. I've heard or read some complaints about the blade itself, the metal, the steel. But I won't get into that. It's just to be aware that there are people that tout D2 when it's not really D2. Yeah, they got a stamp on it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is true D2. Which is, yes, I'm sure most of you know, D2 is kind of the go-to steel for blades nowadays. So the Eafengrow, good luck trying to find any information about the company. If you do have information about it, please share, please comment, because I'd love to know a little bit more. I did some digging and I couldn't find anything out there other than their Amazon store and Instagram page. So that made me think it might be a little sketchy, but I mean, I got what I ordered and it's almost exactly, if not exactly what I ordered, so I can't complain too much. Yeah, I mentioned the liner lock is a big drawback for me. If it wasn't for the flipper / guard, I'd probably have some cuts on me from this one. So yeah, again, not a huge fan. Other thing that kind of bugs me is that stopper. It's too aggressive of a stopper. For those of you who aren't familiar, a lot of knives, I wouldn't say all of them, but a lot of knives have a little bit of a stopper. Like once you first first go to unlock and close a folder, there's going to be a catch right there. And that catch is more aggressive on some knives, less aggressive on others. I don't like them at all. I'm a fan of no stopper. Just let it fold, as most knives do. But this one is an aggressive stopper. So what that does, unfortunately, it makes you want to put your hands or fingers in the way of a closing knife. Not good. So that can be a little dangerous. But I love the jade handle. I've been seeing these for a while. This is my first one I went ahead and snagged. It's somewhat translucent jade. Really cool overall. One of the more cooler things about it was that jade handle. And as you can see, real smooth opening. Those bearings really do go a long way. What I consider low pocket clip. You know, I've got my own kind of variations. If it's flush, it's a low profile. If it's past the frame, then it's a deep carry. Others would disagree, and yeah, feel free. That's just my kind of take on those. One of the other things about this, this knife, not sharp, as you can see. I'm holding down pretty hard, as you can see from my flesh, and it's just going nowhere. So yeah, this thing does not come sharpened out of the box. So I'm sure they think it's sharp, but it is not. So first thing, if you want to get one of these Eafengrows, did I say it right? Something, is probably take a sharpener to it right away. So alright, due to some technical difficulties, my last video cut off with literally just a few seconds to go, so only thing I did not include was a closure. So that's all I needed to throw on this one was a quick thank you for your time, thanks for stopping by, and have a great one. No! Alright, due to some technical difficulties, I was not, my